Welcome, Chess Space viewers, and thank you for purchasing this DVD on the 4 nights. Hopefully it will be educational, hopefully a little bit of fun thrown in as well, and most importantly, I hope you learn a nice opening which you can play with success in your own games. Now, I have not played the 4 nights so much myself, so it was a great experience for me to learn about the opening when I've been preparing the material for this DVD, and I've spent a fair bit of time understanding how to play the opening, all the subtleties and everything else I need to know to do a good DVD, and I'm going to try to pass that over to you now. So to start with, in this introduction, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what this DVD contains and what you've got in store for yourself, so you can go to the relevant games if you want to and have an overview of everything that's going to happen in this 4 nights DVD. So the 4 nights obviously starts after e4, e5, and now knight to f3, knight to c6, and here white doesn't play the highly theoretical bishop to b5 move or the quite theoretical bishop to c4 move, but instead develops the knight with knight to c3. And this position is what the DVD is going to be all about. By the end of this DVD, you'll know exactly what to do with white and hopefully be very comfortable playing these lines. Now, you may be thinking, what is the advantage of playing knight to c3 in this position rather than bishop to b5 or bishop to c4? Now, I think there's some really big advantages. Now, first of all, the move bishop to b5 contains a lot of theory, and you really need to know your stuff and be willing to learn loads of stuff with this move, and you need to keep up with the latest improvements, the latest games, and keep sharp. Black has a number of ways that he can play against this move. He can play in standard Spanish fashion, or the Scrooge of this move nowadays is the Berlin with knight to f6. Now, one of the things we will take a look at is that here you can play knight to c3, transposing to what we look at in the first set of games. So it's a very good way, also an anti-Berlin way of playing what we're going to take a look at. So it's even good if you play the rouleau pairs. But the advantages of playing knight to c3, in my opinion, are such. It's easier to learn, so you don't have to spend as much time learning this. After this DVD, you'll have everything you need to know to get cracking, and that's what we want. It's quite simple, but you can still decide on a couple of different setups, and I'm going to show you 2 main setups. Now, black's main move after knight to c3 is knight to f6. We'll take a look at other moves later on, and here my main suggestions for this DVD are bishop b5, which is considered the main way to play the 4 nights. So we'll start off the DVD by taking a look at this when black has 2 main replies. Black's 2 main replies are bishop to b4, the symmetrical variation, games 2 to 5, I think. Have a look at this line. And then knight to d4 is the so-called Rubinstein variation. And in my experience, this move, knight to d4, what I've done with my research, is a better way for black to play. Now, there are some advantages of playing this bishop to b5 move, and some of the advantages are as such. If you're playing a higher rated player, they might not want to play knight to d4 because there's a well-known variation here, which is a drawing line for white. So already you can pretty much force a draw if you want to. Obviously, I'll show you other ways you can play if you want to play for a win. But against a higher rated player, they might not want to enter into this. So they might be forced to play a move like bishop to b4, when I think white has great chances to gain a nice, small, safe edge. We are also going to look at the move bishop to d6, which has been played by Aronian recently, and this is an interesting new way of playing the position. But again, I think white has good ways of getting an advantage here. So we'll start the DVD off with this bishop to b5 move. What else am I going to take a look at? Well, I'm also going to suggest a secondary option for you in this position, and that is the move d4. Now, I like d4 here. I think it gives you great chances of trying to gain a small, safe advantage, and it avoids a lot of positions. This is the 4 nights Scotch variation, not the drink. I want to say maybe after doing this DVD I'll have a scotch, but not yet. It's a little bit early. And the idea of this d4 is that black really should take on d4. And now we're going to mainly concentrate on knight takes d4. And we avoid a lot of the lines which you might encounter when playing the standard scotch. For example, in this position, black's really only got two good moves. Bishop b4, which is our main analysis, and you can also try bishop c5 if you want to. Black, take a look at this. I don't believe it's very good, but we'll take a look at it. Now, if we go back to the main line scotch after knight c6 and d4 here, without inserting the moves knight c3 and knight to f6, black has so many other options which you need to learn. For example, after taking on d4, black can now play bishop b4 check here, bishop c5, queen to h4 is a very tricky move, and you need to learn all these variations. Now, we avoid all of this by playing knight to c3 first and d4 here, which I think is a very promising way for white to play. Another bonus, this opening is perfect for club players who are trying to improve their game. So players who are trying to learn a nice opening, get some good understanding with chess, and this is what I'm going to really try to get across to you. Some simple, good understanding, going to teach you the ideas and get you confident with this opening. And you don't need to know that much theory, which is brilliant. It's a great opening for the lazier player who still wants to get a nice, hopefully safe advantage with white. Now, other things I do look at, after the move pawn takes d4, I'm actually also going to take a look at this move, knight to d5. If you're a gambiter and you want to play in a more risky style, I'm going to give you this as an option. And this is the Belgrade Gambit. Actually, very underrated move here. And a lot of the current theory in this position, I believe, is incorrect, because one of the main moves is knight takes e4, and this is meant to be the refutation of Belgrade, but not in my opinion. Rather than playing the main move queen e2 here, I'm going to suggest bishop to d3, which I think is a very important, well, I say novelty. It's only been played once before by a 2300 player, and this 2300 player played this move to defeat the great Bologan, who you probably know from doing a number of other good DVDs. So the Belgrade Gambit, very interesting gambit. What else do I take a look at? Well, in this standard position, I'm also going to suggest a very interesting way of playing, and that is the move a3. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is this move? Well, the idea of this move, and this was suggested to me by English Grandmaster Mark Hedman, who has been a lifelong e5 player, and he thinks this is one of the most dangerous moves, believe it or not, in this position. What is the point? Well, there is the Halloween Gambit with knight takes e5. This is a lot of fun, but it's not sound. I have a look at this later on. You can zip forward to that game if you want to. And the point of this crazy sacrifice is that after knight takes e5, white plays d4. And now if black retreats the knight to c6, you can play very dangerously with d5, something like knight b8 and e5, some moves like this. And this gives white great compensation. But the refutation, I believe, of this Halloween Gambit is knight takes e5, pawn to d4, and now in this position, bishop to b4. And according to my analysis, the computer's analysis, after pawn takes e5, knight takes e4, black gets a nice advantage without any risk. So our little move, a3, on move 4, tries to, in some positions, play the Halloween Gambit. For example, after g6, which is a main move, I'm going to now be recommending this crazy move. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this, knight takes e5. And the point now is that we get the Halloween Gambit when the moves a3 and g6 have been inserted, which is to white's benefit. In actual fact, this is probably quite a tasty gambit, as we say in England, for white. So that's a very interesting option. And other moves I take a look at, I actually have a look at bishop e2, another very subtle move, when I think black's best reply is d5, but we'll have a look at that anyway. And I'm not going to take a look at the Gleck variation with g3, because I think black has a number of ways to equalise without any difficulty, and I don't want to look at those setups to confuse you too much here. And of course, after the move knight c3, we take a look at black's other options in this position on move 3. So to summarise, the start of the DVD, we're going to look at bishop b5. Then we're going to move on to the move d4, the Scotch variation of the 4 knights, which I would say is probably the move you should play if you're just starting out, but it will definitely help you to look at the bishop b5 positions. I'm going to use this to try to help you understand what both sides should be aiming to play. And then later on, we're going to look at these interesting moves, a3 and bishop e2. So anyway, sit back, get the popcorn. Hope you enjoyed the DVD. Got some interactive puzzles at the end, and I really hope it helps you improve your chess. So thank you for purchasing this DVD, and good luck with the opening. I'll be giving it lots of goes as well myself, when I'm not brave enough to play the King's Gambit, which is nowadays quite often, actually, I'm afraid to say.